Hello, we are back for another installment of my favorite reads. March had quite a few that I want to share with you, and I guess we'll kick it off with A Bond for Dominic by Amy Bellows. It is an Omega verse book, so it might not be for everybody, but Amy Bellows is really good at putting a lot of emotions and highlights unusual, or maybe not unusual is the right word, but relationships that we don't get to see too often. So like different kinds of pairings, or multiple pairings, or just general gender or relationship dynamics that don't get highlighted a lot. And I really appreciate that. So for A Bond for Dominic, this is part of the Alaskan Pebble Gifter series, which is great. We get to see Dom way back when in a book called An Egg for Ansel. And he kind of intrigued me back then. His father is not a very nice person, very emotionally and at times physically abusive towards Dominic. And also is known, he kind of has given the family a black name for participating in magics that were in a sense illegal and just downright horrible. Essentially, he made his money off of trapping penguin shifters into relationships that they didn't necessarily know that they were getting trapped into. So Dominic, even though he's wealthy and his family has like history there, because of this, he's kind of got like a black spot on him, and so no one really gets too close to him. He is a polar bear shifter. He is actually the Omega to Flint, who is an alpha fairy penguin shifter. And the fairy penguins are cute because they always have naturally blue hair. I don't know if you guys actually know what fairy penguins look like, but they're bright blue tiny penguins. They're very cute. They're off the coast of New Zealand, which is kind of where Flint's family is located. At least his uncle is down there, and he grew up there a little bit. Now he's back in the States trying to make it as a singer-songwriter. He's had a little bit of success. One of his songs did get picked up by a pretty popular pop star. However, there's a lot of I don't know what you want to call it. It's not really angst, but maybe a tiny bit of bad blood due to the agent, the way that the pop star's agent wrote the contract. So he actually is not making nearly as much money as he should for the popularity of the song that he wrote. And he's just looking for an Omega to like be in a relationship. So in this series, the fairy penguins would they do give stones. They go out and they find stones, and they give a stone to their intended partner. However, when he was younger, he never found his stone, and I think we all know it's because he ends up with a polar bear shifter who has different customs and cultures around this, and doesn't necessarily require a stone like the fairy penguin shifters do. So it's kind of nice. You get a little bit of a cross culture as well between these two, which is really nice to see. And you know, one of the best things about Amy Bellows is her nesting scenes. They're always incredibly unique, and she just writes some really wild and like beautiful scenes. And this book has one of my favorites. So if you're not familiar with nesting, so there is a male pregnancy, and Dominic does end up getting knocked up, spoiler alert, by Flint, and ends up having an egg. So he builds a nest like birds do. And there's usually a theme, and I don't want to ruin it, but it has something to do with some of the injustices as Dominic sees it towards Flint and his music. And I think it was just it was probably one of the best nesting scenes I've ever read, and it just made me laugh out loud to the lengths that Dom went to make the perfect nest for Flint. So Just thinking about it, like I highly recommend reading this kind of from the beginning. There are a lot of cameos. It's not necessary per se, because it does, I would say, stand on its own, but to get the full view of exactly Max, Dom's best friend, and a couple of the other characters like Ansel who shows up, and some of the other there's a few other different types of penguins that all take place in like Alaska. I would kind of recommend starting from the beginning and just working your way through. And I don't think you'll be disappointed if Omegaverse is your thing, because like I said, there's a lot of good emotions put behind, and the characters are just some of the most unforgettable. So I really recommend Amy Bellows in general, but I really truly loved a bond for Dominic. It's just something just hit and it was good. All right. Number 2 on my list is from a new author to me. Actually, this is a debut novel as well. It's called Shadow and Ghost by Lex Veia, Veia. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. The premise was kind of wild out there, but I actually really, really enjoyed it. It kind of blew me away for a debut novel, to say the least. So we have Kit and Zach, and I think this is entirely from Kit's point of view. He's kind of like a sassy character who's on his own and like trying to like be super independent and all that good stuff. He considers himself the best of the thieves. He does end up getting caught and sent to the military. Where he actually kind of doesn't do too bad, following the rules and all that stuff, which surprised even himself. So he gets put into this group that is like secret teams that goes out, and here's where it gets kind of like fantasy, urban, apocalyptic a little bit. Like the states are like in a war zone between everyday people and dark magic / demons and witches. So the United States is kind of broken up into at least 2, if not a few more new states or whatever you want to call it, and this new team is supposed to go out and like take out some of these witches who are trying to call up demons for power, obviously. There's a ton of like backstory, and Zach actually is the team leader, aka his name is goes by Ghost as well. And so it was just really action-packed, a little really gritty a lot of times. The characters were kind of unforgettable, and definitely like a slow burn between these two. Kid does not know when to keep his mouth shut sometimes. It can get him into trouble, but he kind of like has to like make his way to prove himself to the team, which I love. The scenes between him and the other team members was really good, and I highly enjoyed it. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit on the darker side without being, it's not terribly, I mean there are dark elements for sure, but to me it wasn't like overtly I guess traumatic dark. Next up is Left on Red by Willow Dixon, which is also part of a series, the Crimson Club series, which River works at. Him and his twin brother work as dancers at this Crimson Club, but River is also a construction worker by day. He meets Hayden, who is a teacher, because he's looking for someone to sell him some tools. So River left his tools in the back of a car, and they end up getting stolen, and he doesn't want to tell his brother that he lost the tools. So he is trying to find someone willing to sell tools that they're not using it for cheap, and he comes across Hayden, who has a bunch of tools that doesn't know what to do with or anything like that. So he's just happy to make a few bucks on the side, and these two become friends. These two are great because River has a very strong ADHD, so he always feels like he's not enough, or he's always like losing things or losing track of time or not understanding situations, where Hayden's kind of been messed up from some past relationships. So these two are actually not very great at communicating, which is normally one of my big pet peeves, is bad communicating. But I would say that it fits this way. So they kind of like go through and they do communicate about some important things, but they never, they're always worried about scaring off the other one because they've agreed to be like friends with benefits. And so no one wants to make the first step and you can say like that feelings are getting involved even though feelings are getting involved. So I would say like normally I don't like miscommunication, but it's not like miscommunication where like, oh, I don't tell you this really big secret and it blows up kind of thing. There's no big blow up, which is nice. And it does take a little bit of intervention from River's twin brother to kind of like give I would say Hayden the push he needs to like kind of break out of this cycle that he's been in and afraid of, you know, getting hurt again. So it was really good. And we do get a lot of good cameos from the other guys at the club who are really fun. And you don't have to read the other ones, but if you're looking for more fun reads, Willow Dixon's a great author, so I highly recommend them as well. And then if you like superheroes but more of a super villain, I've got Sin by Brooke Matthews. Now, this is the second, and I do recommend reading the first, known as Bandit, because what happens in Sin is a direct relation to the way Bandit ends. So even though it's new characters here, we do get a lot of references to what happened in the first one, so it'd be like you would spoil basically what happened before, and you wouldn't get like the full backstory of why Sin is now in jail. So it starts with Sin in jail, no surprise. He helped his dad escaped a high security prison, and his dad ended up doing a lot of bad things, but he kind of got tricked into it. You feel really bad for Sin. He has the power to manipulate through his voice, so he has suggestions like, hey, you want to open this door for me? And then people open the door kind of thing. And so he's kind of got this like feelings of like guilt for bringing on really a horrific event by helping his father escape. And so he is in the prison system and he's getting beat up, I would say, on the daily and more. So it's actually it's a little bit triggering for sure. There's I would recommend going through the content warnings if you've got some not issues, but like if you're worried about anything violent or not kind happening to other people, definitely check a look at there, because there is some triggering content that happens in the prison, and it is on page, not explicit, but enough that I would definitely recommend being wary before just jumping in if that is a concern of yours. That being said, even though he was registered as a villain, Sin, you know, in the end is able to get out because the president has offered him a deal, if you will, that he can join this team to get back an escaped prisoner slash lab lab rat. It's a guy that they were experimenting on, of course, is now incredibly powerful and going out and committing mass murder, so they believe. So they have asked Sin, who they think is the only one powerful enough to help capture, join up with this other team that used to be villains that are now trying to it's kind of like, you know, the Suicide Squad, where they, you know, weren't necessarily the best people before, but now they're like working for the government. And of course, that is headed up by London, who is Sin's ex. So we have a little bit of a second chance going on as well. Logan is very hurt because Sin just kind of left him the first time around without telling him what was going on. So, he's like, you just keep leaving me in these times of like when we should be talking about stuff. And then there's a couple other people in their group, and it was really interesting. I think it was done very realistically as far as like the feelings that Sin had, feeling like an outsider, and also both excited and nervous to be back in London's presence. And then also, oh my God, Brooke broke, I won't lie, Brooke broke my heart in, I would say, the last quarter of this book. So just be aware that there is an event that does end in the death of someone. Now, not one of the two main characters, but I was reading it at work, and it was not an ideal location to read that particular scene. It was, I had to pretend that I had allergies really bad for a while. I was like, oh no, the pollen got to me. But this is a really good book about it's a little bit about redemption and a little bit about healing, for sure. Both of these guys go through quite a bit, and it's definitely, if you like superheroes and villains, I highly recommend this series in general. Then moving on, switching topics to vampires now. I've got Colin by Bryan. This is the last in her vampire series, which I'm like, vampires for me are like hit or miss, but this series in particular is a phenomenal. I read the first one and then I was hooked. I do recommend reading this in order because by the time you get to Colin's, there are a lot of events that have happened. Colin's a little bit off the beaten path, so you probably could, but you would miss getting to know Jamie, who's one of Colin's friends, who's with Lucien, who is book 3, and you also get to meet the twins in that book as well. The twins are the vampires. They are Dane and Fox, and they have what's known as a platonic mating bond. So in this realm, vampires do mate bonds, and that means that they will be stable. They don't have to worry about going crazy or insane. So when these two became vampires, they ended up having a platonic mate bond. So they don't have to worry about eventually like losing their last bit of, I don't know if humanity is the right word, but going, insane and on a murder spree. And then Colin shows up, and Johan is one of his best friends, who I think I mentioned Johan as my favorite read of 2023. Johan's just like the cutest, most cinnamon roll vampire you will ever meet. I highly recommend Johan as well. He's just adorable. And so Colin finds out Johan's vampire secret and has been asking Johan to feed off of him because he enjoys the sensation of being fed on, but he's not, he is finding himself not really attracted to people. So it's like he's like trying to figure out how to turn his brain off, and then Johan gets mated and no longer feeds from Colin. And Colin's sad about this, so he's like, he has to go back to his hometown to take care of his dad, and while he's there, he gets introduced somehow to these twins. Their paths cross, and then he makes a deal. He can be he'll be their roommate if they will feed off him. They're kind of like, you're a little crazy human, aren't you? But it's really well done. Colin's always felt like he's like a little bit broken. He's also got a really big jerk of an ex who made him feel cold and frigid, which is not the case with Dane and Fox. And then these two have always been kind of outliers because there's not very many vampire twins, and so even within their own community, they have a hard time of fitting in. So It's kind of fun. I love Fox. You get a little Fox with the sassiness, and then Dane is like a gentle giant, and they take real good care of Colin, who is just looking for someone to kind of be there and help him turn his brain off at times, because he just overthinks everything, and to just, you know, tell him that he's good enough as he is. And I love it. I mean, it was a really good series. There's a little bit of action in this one, a little bit of a bad person that they're trying to track down, so there's a little bit of plot in the background, but it's the highlight, I would say, is these characters for sure. And then last but not least, by any means, but I had to keep it to as short as I could, and I could not put this one on the list. It was Red Haze by Lark Taylor. So I do tend to love Lark Taylor's writing, and this is part of the Caffeine Daydream series. Caffeine Daydreams being a band, and this takes with Arlo, who is the drummer, and then their bodyguard Jack. So once again, it's the last in the series. You can read the series together, which wouldn't be bad. I do like they're all good. Or you can, I think you could get away with them. There's the first half of this kind of overlaps a few of the events in the first one, White Noise. So, you know, there's a little bit, you know, of spoilering that one, but I mean, not too much, because each one's a different couple. So Jack was assigned to Arlo as his bodyguard. Arlo and the rest of them really are from kind of like not a great area. It would be known as like the projects in the States. They're kind and Arlo's father is also really abusive towards him, and so he's kind of running away, and so they find this success, and he's not quite sure or believes that he's gonna be able to keep it. And then also at the same time, his father like extorts him for money. It's a messed up situation. So Jack comes in, and he's just told that Arlo is like bratty, and he doesn't understand exactly the dynamics that he's walking into. And then he slowly kind of sees, and then things break down with their manager, and then it takes like 6 years apart or something crazy like that. Then so you get like when they meet and a little bit of their backstory, and then there's like a gap when Jack leaves the protection detail and goes to do something else, and it's just like a lot of time in this one, but then another second chance. Jack kind of gets his stuff together. He had to think about some things. He had to figure out what he wanted and how he was coming across and all that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, Arlo gets this like weird ass stalker. So Jack is hired, or his company is hired to help keep Arlo safe from this guy. So there's a little bit of action in the second half, trying to figure out who the stalker is, and you know, making sure that no one gets kidnapped. And then we do get a tiny cameo from Lark Taylor's Demon series by River, which was really cool. But for the most part, this is just a straight up a contemporary rock star romance, and really good characters. So it was a lot of fun, and I couldn't leave it off the list. All right, so hopefully you've been enjoying my recommendations. I have been enjoying sharing them with you. If you want, please feel free to like and subscribe to catch all the content. I'll leave a comment below if you have read them, or if you're interested, or anything that you've read that you've really enjoyed. I'm always looking for a new read. So thank you.